it's Monday, and it is not a Browns victory, but we are going to go through the PFF grades with no one other than John Costco. We'll talk about the offense first. We'll get right into it, talk about everyone that wants to know about Deshaun Watson. How do he look? We'll get John's thoughts on that. We'll get into the defense, see what was going on the defensive side of the football, who ranked higher, and what they did against Joe Burrow. And then obviously we will get to the special teams. We had a terrible roughing the kicker punt on a punt. So we'll kind of debunk that and kind of dive into what that was. And then overall, we'll give you the high grades, low grades, in between grades from Pro Football Focus. We'll do it all coming up on a Reaction Monday version of Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Your host, Garrett Bush, part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 92.3 The Fan, Barbershop, Saturday mornings. You can always check out G there, pregame, postgame coverage. Browns, Buckeyes, Guardians, Cavaliers, at GBush91. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. The show itself, Locked On Browns, at Locked On Browns follow back account. We appreciate you all for making Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. Today's episode of Locked On Browns is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than the Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com/promo code Locked On. Yes, everybody, a difficult day yesterday for your Cleveland Browns. 23-10 losers. A little gambling early from Coach Stefanski with the Jacoby Brissett call. And I know everybody kind of wants to point the finger. And when we're going to talk here a little bit with John Costco offensively, it's a collective. We need extra fingers. We're going to need like 3-4 hands here. Nobody really played well. It was a group effort. First, just from sights, Deshaun Watson, I think you saw a major amount of improvement from week 1 to week 2. And you wanted to see that. You knew there was going to be a big jump in competition between the Houston Texans and, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals defense. DJ Reader had a monster day yesterday. Browns interior had no answers for that. Slowed down the run game as the game went on. The Browns were basically dominant on passing the game. And I think for the most part, Deshaun Watson, we saw a lot of what we were hoping to see with Deshaun Watson. I do want to get here, though, John. As, the season's progressing here, and, it could be injuries. We have some guys playing on that offensive line. We're talking about a 4th-string center, for God's sakes, at this point. So there are some issues to be had. There is some suffering that's going on. The passing game, at times there was a combination of, is Deshaun not seeing everything, or are we getting to an issue with Deshaun Watson when we're getting to 2nd, 3rd, 4th reads? Are those guys just not getting open?
I mean, it's a combination of all that, right? So Watson is his 2nd game back from being off for 700 some odd days. He found some of those plays, some of them he didn't. And, and a lot of times, though, guys aren't getting open. So I think with it comes to, for Deshaun Watson, is that he's got to start becoming more comfortable after not playing for 700 plus days. So that you started to see that this week, but it's clearly, in my opinion, still not there. And he looked vastly better than he did last week, which is not hard to do considering how many balls he underthrew and missed. This week didn't have that type of many misses, but the issue he had was, he had obviously the massive interception, which was, in a critical moment there. He was way late on it. I know in his press conference, he talked about how he should have just taken his check down. It's like, well, if he throws it in the proper timing, that's a wide open receiver. So it's, when the receivers are there to be open, he's got to be able to hit them. And then when they're not covered and they're covered up, he's got to be able to, extend the play, which I think that's going to come for him in time. And, you use the rest of the season to kind of just let him start slinging it, because The first 2 weeks that Deshaun Watson's been out there, it feels like Kevin Stefanski's kind of babying him along, and he really kind of needs to unleash him, especially in the game against the Bengals where you need some high variance stuff. When your run game was obviously just completely stymied.
John, I'm gonna get right off into it. I did think Kevin Stefanski has a little bit taking it very easy and slowly on some of his passing game concepts with Deshaun Watson. The one thing that a lot of people, talked about, and I haven't seen this before, but the fourth down and one throw, I get that people are all over it, but I would be all over it too. I mean, we've seen Jacoby Brissett throw the ball for 10, 11 weeks. That's not what it's about. I don't understand why you would have a guy come off the bench to throw a corner route, even though he was open and play was there. There's a couple of things I would have rather happen. Hey, take some points in that situation, or if you're going to run that play, run it with Deshaun Watson. I don't, I thought Deshaun had a bit of a rhythm. I thought he had hit a couple throws during that drive. He had capitalized on the momentum. You're in their territory, and then you take the ball out of his hands to go do a play with Jacoby Brissett. In that situation, I don't know what the rationale behind that is. Your thoughts on that play, and do you think that kind of derailed a little bit of their momentum starting off on the game?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the analytic circles, you're going to have guys that say momentum doesn't exist. The main thing is that you can't quantify momentum. But there is a feel of like, hey, we're rolling right now. Let's keep it rolling. And if you want to call that momentum or what have you, hey, I'm in a good rhythm. Let me stay in this good rhythm. You pull out a guy who's feeling good of, hey, let's put the other guy in, and then the other guy doesn't hit on the throw. All good feelings of that drive are out the window. So it's either you take the points with the 3, which is take the points, quote unquote, because field goals aren't automatic. But I'm all in favor of going for it in that situation, just not the way you did it. Like exactly what you said. If you're gonna go for it on that 4th and 1, let Deshaun Watson let it ride or die in his hands, not somebody else's hands who's already been in this offense for 11 weeks. He's got to start getting in that flow of things. He overthought himself in that situation. That's a problem that Stefanski's had, I'd say, pretty much his entire tenure, where it feels like his play calling will stymie momentum and the flow of what players are doing or the offense is doing, because he has some sort of hey, we're in this situation, I have to call it like this, or I have to do it. It's an overthinking of analyzing of a thing. And we should just like, hey, this play is working over and over. This dude's cooking. Ride the hot hand. Like, that's a common thing in sports. So, yeah.
Really quickly, before we get to that, what grade did you have for Deshaun Watson in terms of his grade overall in this game?
His grade in this game, where is that? 56.8 overall. Last week was in the low 40s. So that's a big improvement. Still a far cry from where he obviously needs to be and what actually Jacoby Brissett was giving on a normally weekly basis.
Yeah, no question. Well, I just want to get to here. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about that play. Look, for me, it's the second time. And if you're a really good team, you can kind of wave points off. And look, 42, 43, 44, whatever the field goal would have been, you're on the road in a big game. We did this in Atlanta. That was a week you didn't have Myles Garrett. You didn't have Jadeveon Clowney. You had points early. You left them off the board. Your defense went out. Got to stop against the Cincinnati Bengals in the first drive. I don't care. Come away with points there, man. Everybody starts to feel good about themselves. And look, the Jacoby Brissett thing, man, thank you for your service. Appreciate everything you did. You were a great story. You were humble. You were a leader, But I paid $238 million because Deshaun Watson can do things with his brain, his arm, and his legs. So I don't take Deshaun Watson off the field on 4th and 1 to bring back in Jacoby Brissett for the threat of the QB sneak, which doesn't work anymore. It's been stymied at, the last 5 or 6 times they've done it. It's not gone anywhere. Just, man, keep it simple, stupid. He's your star. He's your player. Let him make that throw. Or guess what? If the deep throw ain't there, I'm Deshaun Watson. I have legs. I move well. I will find a way to get you 9 feet. 9 feet. I will figure out a way to get you 9 feet. We're going to switch it up here. We're going to go defensive side of the ball. A little promising yesterday. Some guys I definitely, a couple guys we're going to talk about that probably haven't gotten a lot of run here on the PFF episodes with John Costco, Jeff Lloyd, G. Bush, your latest Locked On Browns. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget. Book an SUV or minivan for a family road trip, a pickup truck for some errands, or even test drive an EV. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. This episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we are sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new episode from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on and off the field, but off of it, we rarely know the grind on the path to greatness. Each episode features interviews with Olympic medalists, NFL stars, and business leaders. Available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head on over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts. Available everywhere now. Audible, get in the game.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. At GBush91 is where you can follow me. At Jeff_LJ_Lord is where you can find Jeff. And us, obviously, we do have John Costco, Pro Football Focus, in on a Browns reaction Monday. Costco, let me get into this. Defense, we haven't talked about this a lot, but I thought, I want to say for the first quarter and a half, I thought the defense played pretty well. I thought that they did a good job of kind of getting after Joe Burrow with 4. I thought they did some cool things in terms of, you did see Myles Garrett line up at the 3 technique as well. I do want to ask you this question. Another contentious thing I had is that when you looked at this game plan, you find out that T. Higgins is not playing. You find out Tyler Boyd's not playing. And you pretty much, the Bengals are going to throw the ball. They didn't do too much with Samaje Perine or Joe Mixon as far as the run game is concerned. At that point in time, you're looking at it like, hey, you are going to try to at least double Jamar Chase and take him out the game. But, I mean, the guy had 15. They targeted him 15 times, got over 100 yards and a touchdown. In that scenario, wouldn't you think that they would go to move to take him out of the game and kind of, prohibit him from, being one of the targets that they were moving to a lot?
Yeah, you'd think so. So I think what they came into this game was a game plan to try to defend all 3 of those receivers. And when T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd went out basically in the first drive of the game, Cincinnati needed to adjust. It took them a bit to adjust to that. The Browns didn't. And why the Browns didn't is beyond me. You're talking about Jamar Chase, who's arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. There's a case for it or whatever. He's, top 5, no doubt. And why you just say, hey, Denzel, you can cover this dude. Now he hasn't been able to cover anybody all year long. So why would you expect him to do that in this game against one of the best wide receivers? So why they continue to just run what they run is beyond me. And I think that's kind of an indictment on like what the staff and this Joe Woods led staff is that you see issues with this defense where when something's not working for them, they don't really adjust off of it. So, you kind of hope, I guess they hope that Myles Garrett's going to get pressure after Joe Burrow quickly enough that he's going to make things happen. But guess what? Myles Garrett did get a ton of pressure on Joe Burrow in this game. He actually pressured him 6 times, along with Jadeveon Clowney 6 times as well. But Joe Burrow is good enough that he's going to be able to get the ball out to the guys that need to, and he's athletic enough to evade pressure and run for first down. So, I don't know. I couldn't tell you why they didn't adjust.
For me, the frustrating thing was, like the Bengals were almost committed. Like you could see even the touchdown passes, Jamar Chase. Joe didn't want to go there. And like Chase sort of ran the route like he knew it wasn't coming to him. He just happened to be open because it was played so poorly. Johnson was late coming over. Denzel was late on the trail because Jamar Chase basically turned around and was like, oh, look at this. Okay, because I think the Bengals probably felt, oh, right, we're going to have to throw the ball to these other guys because, what are you going to do at this point? You're going to try and take away Jamar Chase. I want to talk about a little interior line play on the defensive side of the ball. We don't get to do this often this season on Locked On Browns. Taven Bryant, look, for what the Browns are paying, and it's not much, anybody wants to say he's a disappointment, you can't. I mean, you're not paying the guy much. I think $2.5, $3 million, whatever it is. The guy's giving you some solid effort. He does some things in the middle. Perion Winfrey, his best game is a pro, John, and you got to think the door now with where the Browns are as far as, a 0.004% chance, whatever it is. This is going to be the time for the Perion Winfreys of the world, the Alex Wrights of the world. There's going to be reps to be had for these guys because the Browns need to at least go into this offseason. You can't go into this offseason with incompletes on these guys. You got to say, hey, look, we think they're going to be a rotational player. Yeah, maybe they're not starters yet. Granted, that's our hope. But for a guy like Perion Winfrey yesterday and Taven Bryan, who's been the best of that room the entire season. And again, it's not saying much. It's like being like the smartest kid in the community college gym class, of course, as we all know to this point. But a couple of thoughts on those guys, John. And Perion, it's been a humbling rookie season. So if he can maybe string together this, with maybe a final decent month, at least he'll walk out of the building feeling a little bit better about himself, and maybe the Cleveland Browns will as well.
Yeah, so the highest graded players for the Browns defense this week were naturally Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, but then you go down the list and it's then Deion Jones, Taven Bryant, and Perion Winfrey, and both of those guys, and actually Deion Jones, all were in the 70s, which is really good games for those guys. Taven Bryant last week was also in the 70s. And he's backed up his best game of the year last week with his best game of the year this week, with an offensive line that has drastically improved over the course of the year. So I think for both these guys, and that's obviously spells really good things for, maybe the future for Perion Winfrey, and say, hey, maybe we're seeing progress with Perion. We saw it, when he, before he got hurt in the Baltimore game, he was on his way to his best game of the year that week. He came back from his injury. He's shown, couple shaky games, but then showed out in this one where he was solid in his run defense and was making some plays in the run game. So and also as a pass rusher as well. So for these guys, like, continue to fit your gaps correctly. Be stout at the point of attack. I would say that the run defense has been better the past 2 weeks, outside of a run or two here and there, which are going to happen with
Ryan's touchdown, Nixon's long one. Yep.
Yeah, it just happens. And so I think with this defense, it's been playing better. It's still far ways away. The secondary was awful in this game. Ward was a 41.3. Del Pitt was a 42.3. Ronnie Harrison was a 42.6. John Johnson was a 45.7. You want to know why they lost the game? It's those guys. That's the reason why they lost it, because they couldn't lock anybody down on the back end. And I think it is what it is there. One thing I want to go on a little bit of a tangent here is what the heck they were doing on that last drive, trying to stop the run when Joe Mixon, ran out the clock to get it under, to the 2-minute warning. They had, Ben Steele and Jordan Kanuziak out there getting wrecked instead of having Myles Garrett and also Isaiah Thomas was out there, who's the lowest graded defender. So they had backups in there trying to stop the run. It seems like they just threw in the towel instead of trying to make one last run and one last go for it at the end of the game there. So I was not too pleased to see that.
Well, if you look at it this way, hopefully we got a couple more weeks of this Joe Woods defense. I don't, whatever may go down at the end of the year, like I said before, I take no pleasure in saying that the guy's not getting it done. But I don't think the defensive players have any faith in what Joe Woods is calling. And frankly, I wouldn't either.
Gee, I do agree with you there. And here's the thing, what you're going to try to do here in free agency. Free agency, but making the change with going to a new defensive coordinator. What are you maybe looking to poach? You're maybe looking to say, hey, all right, well, so-and-so's got that guy's a free agent on that defense. Most likely he's not staying there. So if I can poach the defense, somebody to be my defensive coordinator, I can maybe poach a body or two, basically to take the plane ride with him. John, the thing that I agree with you there that I was aggravated about is go out there. Who even cared? Yes, the game was probably well in doubt at that point. Let Deshaun go get a 2-minute drive. You know what I'm saying? These are all things you try to work on, and you try to take advantage of any opportunity you can. So for me, that was what was frustrating to me, because I wanted Deshaun out there with no timeouts, going from the gun, because, God knows that's a really, really difficult thing to recreate. But hey, look, I mean, as I tweeted yesterday, I'm not upset. I mean, we talked about this. Once that suspension went from 6 to 11, you realize that most likely this was probably the probable outcome here. You probably figured that was going to be the case. Granted, we didn't think the story was going to be that Jacoby Brissett played well and the defense let everybody down. But either way, the story basically ended up in the same place. The episodes along the way, certainly a little different. Jeff Lloyd, Garrett Bush, we're just going to get a final thought here or two from John Costco rolling through here on your latest Locked On Browns. Prize Picks, guys, you all know the drill with Prize Picks. Put together a lineup. I love to do it Thursday night games, Monday night games, Sunday night game. You're a little more relaxed. You're not flipping around, checking other games, other scores. Put together a lineup, 2 to 5 players. And basically, here is the way it works. If they score more or less than their projections, you basically win up to 10 times your bet. Not too shabby. You can go to Prize Picks. Use promo code Locked On. They will give you a deposit match up to 100%. So you give them $50, they're going to match you 50. You give them 100, they will give you 100. Again, for me, I like the fact that I'm all in on one game, so you can have a lot of rooting interest. You could have had a nice night last night with the Chargers, Dolphins. Freak Tyreek Hill points, Justin Herbert. Everybody who talked about Justin Herbert last week, I think the Miami Dolphins would like to tell you to go scratch, because you aggravated the kid and he went out there and gave a showing. But go to Prize Picks. Use the promo code Locked On. PrizePicks.com. Daily fantasy made easy. And again, instant deposit match up to $100 using the promo code Locked On.
Welcome back to the Locked On Browns podcast. We've been talking about offense, defense, but one thing we must talk about is make sure you subscribe on YouTube. We are close to 44,000 subscribers. Let's see if we can get that thing together. 4 more games in the season. We'll continue to pump out the best content that we can. Also, continue to make the Locked On Browns podcast your first listen of each and every day. You can download our podcast wherever you download your podcast or wherever you get your podcast. Continue to support us on both areas. We talked of offense. We talked defense. Let's get to some final thoughts here. One thing that I couldn't understand in this game was I didn't understand. We talked to Tim Couch today, and I asked him, I said, hey, what were your thoughts on the punt block, man? I mean, in that circumstances, like one thing that I have a problem with the Browns is playing football awareness and complementary football and knowing what the situation is, man. If you're in that circumstance and you're 0-0, your team is playing well, you're getting after Joe Burrow, it looks like your team is confident in the game plan. It's 4th and 15. They're inside their own 20, and you come with a punt block. Stefanski says, well, it was only his 4th game or something, so we wanted to speed him up. And I'm like, even if you just go with a return, you got a guy back there that just returned a punt for you last game. At least set up the return or a punt safe, and you get the ball at the 40-yard line in Bengals territory. You're ready to go. I just didn't understand that play. And obviously, you get Tony Fields. He runs into the kicker. You give him a first down, and the Bengals eventually go down and score. Plays like that overall, it's just, in general for the Browns, there's one too many plays like that. The penalties were crazy. The lot of holding. And frankly, you can't beat anybody when you're doing those things. And it just seems like it's a broken record when we're talking about some of these things. John, what did you see in general overall? Where are you looking at this team and where do they go forward?
Yeah, I'm not going to say that I'm a special teams expert by any means, but like just knowing the Browns and how bad the special teams are in general, like why risk something like that? I get the whole reasoning behind doing that, where you want to speed up the guy's internal clock and make him try to hopefully shank one or something like that, have a less good punt or something. But it's like you already pinned these teams back. If they happen to boom one out there, they've outkicked their coverage, and you trust that your dude can at least have a decent return. These next 4 weeks for the Browns are going to be like, hey, let's get Deshaun Watson as comfortable as possible. Let's let him cook. Let's see what he can do. Because there's an outside shot that they're going to make the playoffs, but let's just stop kidding ourselves. They're not going to make the playoffs unless the 3 teams in front of them just absolutely collapse, that need to collapse. And so I think for the Browns, it's like, okay, let's get Deshaun Watson and let's put a show on for the guy. Let's see what he can do with the ball and see what, why we paid him all this money. That's my thought process on the rest of the year. Like you hopefully win all the 4 games, because like, obviously, the difference of a first round pick for you means nothing at this point. So I think you try to win all 4 games. Obviously, all the players are going to, and you evaluate the young guys in your roster at the same time and see what you really have in this roster. Maybe throw some different things at the playbook this week and see, hey, we're gonna switch things up a little bit with our schemes or whatnot. So I think just kind of throw the kitchen sink at it. Let Deshaun Watson cook, see what he can do, because the last thing you want is to have him struggle at the beginning of next season because he didn't get the reps he needed this year, and have a Russell Wilson type situation where you're trying to find in season of what that matters, what it is that he likes and what he doesn't like.
Just want to thank John Costco, is always coming in here every Monday for us, guys. He's got other commitments, but we always appreciate making the time for us. Make sure you follow at John Costco 3. John will be in touch, and thank you for gracing us with that beautiful
yes.
Ugly Christmas sweater. Our boy, John Costco. Gee, I do want to get to Tony Fields too, because my Lord, this is such a difficult thing for a young player. Tony Fields, not even 1 week ago, is the toast of the town. And I'm with you. What was anybody even doing near the punter? Even remotely near? Because you want to know what? Something stupid can happen. Somebody can push you in your back. Somehow, some way, something dumb can happen. And you've got a defense that's doing all they can. And you know what Joe Burrow can do. And guess what? You got him to a 4th and 15. And you literally, it was just like the poop. It was literally, because then they followed it up with the Ward. I think it was 33 yards on the pass interference. Nope. And these defense who were fighting for their lives, doing all they can, boom, blows up in their face. And, now we're back to, we have issues when we're behind on the defensive side of the ball, seeing what this offense can do. I do want to talk here, though. 8 for 114 yesterday. I know there's a lot of talk about the fade that Donovan Peoples-Jones didn't catch in the end zone. First things first, he was never going to be in bounds. Okay, guys? So if you watch it a million times, the first foot lands out of bounds. So let's relax there a little bit. And the other thing is, one thing we have learned about Donovan Peoples-Jones to this point in the NFL is he's a good back shoulder receiver. His first career touchdown in Cincinnati, back shoulder. Had a couple of big ones against the Bills, back shoulder. Throw the back shoulder. That's what worked for Donovan Peoples-Jones. At least it's worked to this point. Deshaun, you adapt to him. You know what I'm saying? The kid's really putting in the effort. He really is. 8 for 114. He's up to 751, I think, now for the year. We're legitimately talking about 2 wide receivers going over 1,000 yards. David Njoku, over 5. We were hoping for maybe 7, 8 over these last 4 games. Some missed time. We'll see where David Njoku gets there. But for me, over the next couple of weeks, and look, however much they use Nick over the next couple of weeks, look, I will never care about a rushing title. I'd love to see Nick win it, but he's probably not close enough in that regards anyway. And the Raiders are going to ride Josh Jacobs in a free agency like an SUV that tried to evade the cops. And then you finally see it on the side of the road with no tires. It's missing the grill. So the Raiders, that's one thing they'll play for. The Browns, there's no reason to when you already have Nick Chubb extended and obviously a huge part of what's in the fold for the next year. For me, I want to see some David Bell. I want to see some Robert Woods. I want to see if you have any thought of using Demetric Felton whatsoever, because now he just goes on the field and everything Demetric Felton does is basically just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is.
Motion. He takes turn running around sideline to sideline.
Yep. And the new guy, Jalen Darden. Look, he's here. Jalen Darden's probably going to go into a competition over the summer. Jakeem Grant is older, coming back from an Achilles. What does that do for Jakeem Grant? Maybe you have a Jakeem Grant type of guy in Jalen Darden. I want to start seeing these guys play. With Greedy Williams sitting yesterday, we all know that that book is closed. Greedy Williams' career is going to come to an end here in a few weeks with the Cleveland Browns. All the best wherever he goes. The Browns know who their top three are. They like A.J. Green. Thomas Graham does a little bit more on special teams, can play nickel. Greedy can only play on the outside. You've already got Martin on the outside. You've already got Ward on the outside. Green is bigger than Greedy. I mean, you're in a tough spot here. But let's play the kids. Linebacker, look, JOK injured. Most likely, we'll see how that plays. They're not going to push him now with nothing to play for. So these other guys, go out there, do what you can do. It's Baltimore. It's New Orleans. It's Washington. It's Pittsburgh. There is a real legitimate chance the Browns can close out this season 4-0. And for me, I want to see it happen because I want to see guys focus and say, look, we may understand we are going to fall well short of our ultimate goal. But these are 4 games the Cleveland Browns can win. You're talking about most likely a third-string quarterback possibly playing for the Baltimore Ravens on Saturday in his first NFL start on the road. Anthony Brown grew up 10 minutes from me. So happy for you, kid. But I want to see you have the worst Christmas, the worst December 17th anybody's ever had. But last 4 weeks here, going to get some young guys involved. You got to get, some sorts of some determination on some of these players. But yeah, Deshaun Watson, you want to air it out 40 times over the next 4 weeks? I'm in.
I'm with you, man. Give me some Jerome Ford. I think we can piggyback on a couple other guys. I think Kareem Hunt's tenure is finished here. I think the writing was on a wall with that. You look at Jack Conklin. I think that you may have seen him the last time here. What he's done so far. So that's another couple of names right there. And here's the thing. To be honest with you, I think it's going to be very difficult to get a aging Anthony Walker to come back here. He was only on a 1-year deal anyway. So it was not like they had invested in him long term. So you're gonna start to see a lot of these names and familiar faces that we had around here for a long period of time. I don't think those individuals will be here. I think they'll definitely what's his name? Rodney Harrison, another guy, will not be here next year. So guys will be looking around. You'll be looking to flip some of these guys on the roster. But like you said, there's still opportunity to put that tape, some good plays on tape, and that's what you're looking for. And I will say this, Coach Kevin Stefanski, this is also a 4-game tryout for you too, because I'm going to let you know, this year it was not a year in which we reached what goals we wanted to. But let's be clear about this: if you start off next year in the first 6 games and it's 2-4. I'm going to be honest with you. You guys might be looking for another coach. And that's just the way it works. You got to think about it like this. It's the 4th year. We talked about it before. I haven't seen any signature victories. The best thing that he can do is get Deshaun Watson well oiled up for these 4 games, have a beautiful offseason, go to Andrew Berry and say, you got to get me some players to flip this thing over. And next year, the Cleveland Browns have to hit this ground running. Like a nosebleed. None of this 2-3 and 2-6. No. You got the first 6 next year to prove. First 6 plus this is going to prove whether or not you're going to be the long-term answer here at Cleveland.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, look, I'm not saying the seed is hot, but this has got to start to work, and it's got to start to work quickly for this team. The other thing is I have already established number 1 free agent target for the Cleveland Browns in 2023, Daron Payne, defensive tackle, Washington Commodores. Commanders, rather. Commodores.
We're
going
Lionel Richie and the Commodores.
A little Motown, baby. He is Garrett Bush, the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, Monday through Friday. Available live 11 to 1 on YouTube. Of course, also 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop. Garrett's there every Saturday morning. Definitely other appearances where you can catch G over at The Fan. Pre-game post coverage for your Browns, Buckeyes, Cavaliers, Guardians. Make sure you're following at G Bush 91. Myself, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Show itself at Locked On Browns. Follow back account. We appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform, of course, available on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe with notifications on, so that way when the content drops, you guys are there to digest it. And if you got the Roku app, search Locked On Cleveland Sports. You'll find G and the crew at the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You'll find Locked On Browns, Cavs, Guardians. Thank you all so much. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.